Good morning, everyone.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to today's showcase with Odyssey. We've got a very interesting presentation today, as usual, with somebody that you may be quite familiar with, Maxime Ion, Vice President of Revenue at Odyssey Energy. So we'll be starting in a few moments, just giving a chance for everybody to register. I see we already have quite a good number of people logging in. Um, while more people are joining us, just briefly, remind you a few housekeeping rules. If you follow us on regular basis, I'm sure you're familiar with this slide. But nevertheless, it's a kind reminder. First of all, yes, of course, the recording and the deck will be shared with you after the presentation. So you may ask for it as many times as you want in the chat and in the Q&A section, but yes, the answer is yes. It will be shared with you if you're listening in with us today. We have your contact details, and we will be following up with you so that you get all the so this means that you can fully enjoy the presentation today. No need to be worried about the deck. And what you can do to have the best possible experience, you can network with fellow listeners. And I'm inviting you to do this through the chat section. It's a great place for sharing a little bit about your company, where you're based. Maybe you're looking for a specific partner. This is a great place to network with fellow professionals. If you have specific questions for Maxime, and I'm sure you will have many after today's presentation, then please do submit those questions through the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom options. The reason why we are asking this is that many times we don't get the time to address all the questions that are being asked. If you submit them through the chat, they disappear. If you submit them through the Q&A option, they are being kept. They will be shared with Maxime and his colleagues, and then there is a chance that they will be following up with you and address your question more specifically. Please make the difference between chat and now, over to our speaker. This is not the first time that I have the pleasure of welcoming Maxime, and I'm sure some of you may already be familiar with him. But for those of you who would be meeting Maxime for the first time, here's a quick intro. Maxime has been working in the South African solar industry for over 10 years now, so quite experienced in the field. And for Odyssey, he's been working with a few other companies, among others, Emergent Energy and Solar Direct, as head of commercial portfolio and head of marketing. Nowadays, as you can see, he's the vice president of Odyssey. And we always like to share a fun fact about our speakers. And Maxime is the founder of the Biltong board. Anybody who's familiar and has been to South Africa knows that Biltong is very serious in South Africa. And so the founder of the Biltong board, I'm very impressed by this, Maxime. It's nice to have other persons next to solar. And then a quick word about educational backgrounds, business degree, postgraduate degree in entrepreneurship from the University of Cape Town. So really also understanding quite a lot of the reality of the companies that you are helping throughout your programs with Odyssey. So very interesting background, very interesting topic, talking about supply chain, financing, and more specifically, RBF, results-based financing. So this is enough for me. Maxime, I hand over to you. I invite you to share your screen and start your presentation because we have many people eager to hear what you have on this topic today.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. I should thank you, John, and the AFSIA team again for hosting us. It's always a real pleasure to be sharing this stage with AFSIA, and always a great platform to connect with so many of you. I believe today we had 500 signups, so clearly the topic is relatable. So today we'll be talking about a topic that matters deeply to all of us working in energy access: how to unlock electrification project by solving procurement and working capital challenges. Uh, the title here says it all: flexible credit to unlock your pipeline. Because what we've seen again and again is that the bottleneck isn't the lack of committed capital. There's billion already committed through a number of RBF programs. The bottleneck is the timing of that capital and the ability to bridge the gap. And that's where Odyssey really comes in with our procurement platform and our supply chain credit. Over the next 45 minutes or so, I'll be walking you through why it matters, how it works, and the impact it already has on the ground. So I'll reintroduce Odyssey very briefly. Many of you will be familiar with who we are, maybe even used and interacted with our RBF platform in the past. But at Odyssey, our mission is to accelerate capital deployment dedicated to renewable energy. We do that by connecting and collaborating with three key stakeholders: solar developers, like many of you here today, whether you are an SHS company, a mini grid developer, focus on CNI, measure it, you name it. We have a product and we'd be able to support you. We work with equipment manufacturers. We need reliable buyers and clear logistic solutions. And we work, of course, with financiers. We want to deploy more capital efficiently with lower risk. So our role is to reduce operational risk, accelerate capital deployment, and improve, return on investment across the entirety of this ecosystem. As you will see on the slide, we have 3,000 partners globally. We are facilitating the deployment of roughly $3 billion of capital into the sector. We have 30 plus framework agreement with equipment manufacturers. I'll be telling you more about these agreements later on. And we have facilitated to date 3.3 million of system. So why our role matters? It matters because RBF program, while being a powerful tool and an amazing catalyst to our ecosystem, do create cash flow gaps for the grantees that can slow down execution. Our job at Odyssey is to remove those barriers so developers can focus on building, financiers can focus on funding, and suppliers can focus on delivery. As you will know, Africa is where the largest and most ambitious RBF programs are happening. You would be familiar with a lot of the programs here on these slides. And if you are, you've likely interacted with our platform or our teams before. Today, Odyssey is managing $1.3 billion worth of capital in Africa. These are programs that are active or at advanced planning phases. By being inactive, it means that the program is already signing grant agreements, disbursing capital, and advanced planning would mean that they are receiving applications. Just to use a few examples, we've got the DS program in Nigeria, funded by the World Bank with $750 million. We have this in Madagascar, $200 million, which is busy ramping up and also signing grants. We're using the Pro Energia example here on these slides, but there are so many more happening in Mozambique with Phaser, Brillo, and others. The exciting agri program happening in DRC, and so many more. So these are programs that are run on our platform. But I should also say that we are already supporting a lot of the developers and companies taking part in these programs, but we are not prescriptive on the program itself, meaning that we do not need to run the program in order to be able to be supporting you with your procurement endeavors. So I should also say that the scale is really encouraging. It means that capital is here to be deployed. But many of you would know firsthand if funds are committed and if you've been appointed by the program and you've got a signed grant agreement in hand, the funds are not immediately available to build projects. And this is where the gap emerges. So developers across Africa consistently face a number of major challenges under these programs. The first one would be high upfront capex. If we look at mini grids, every single connection would require roughly $400 to $800 to be disbursed before subsidies is released. There's also a shifted risk mechanism where grant makers disburse only once results are verified, meaning you have to carry that upfront risk yourself. Another risk that we'll discuss later is that disbursement is often, but always, subject to verification of these connections, which can add delays in disbursements of these buckets of capital. The third one is related to the first pain point, the working capital squeeze. You must pay for equipment, shipping, installation long before any inflows of cash come from the programs. And lastly, there is a bankability gap. If you're looking at financing these projects using your own network, engaging your banks or other lenders, most lenders hesitate to lend because the repayment often depends on rural consumers. Of course, you have the RBF component, which is a great catalyst again, and will support you in unlock additional capital, and that's the very first step. But generally speaking, it's difficult to raise capital on the back of these RBF programs. Not impossible, it's just difficult. It's a lengthy process and it's a cumbersome process. So this is the choke point. It's not a question of whether the projects are viable, it's whether developers can fund the first brick before donors' cash arrive, and that's what Odyssey set out to fix. So one of our first steps was to address these challenges faced by developers in Africa was to address the procurement directly. To date, we've supported in excess of $200 million in equipment procurement, which has delivered a number of benefits for our partners and the companies using our platform. Developers can bridge timing gaps and avoid expensive equity. Suppliers are paid reliably, which build confidence and reduce delays. By leveraging our OEM agreements, developers can get better pricing and stronger terms. As mentioned earlier on, we have established partnerships through procurement aggregation processes over the last few years with the top brands worldwide, whether it's inverter brands, module brands, cable, battery brands, to the extent that when you are procuring through Odyssey, it is very likely that we have been able to negotiate better pricing than what you are able to access yourself because of the scale of our operation and the work we would have done upstream. And lastly, but importantly, there's no collateral required when we procure on your behalf. So in other words, we take the pain point and the pain out of procurement so you can keep your project moving forward. So behind this support is the Odyssey Procurement Platform. So what does it offer? As I just mentioned, best terms from OEM through established framework agreement, pre-negotiated, and the benefits from this framework agreement are essentially given to you. Robust choices, multiple vetted options for every major component, so we can benchmark the market for you, providing you with the information you need in order to make an educated procurement decision. Specialized staff. I think it's worthwhile mentioning that Odyssey has a fully fledged procurement department who act as your extended procurement team. It's like being able to lean on accounting firms to the difference that we are not charging per hours. We're just working with your team to unlock the best deal and to ensure that your equipment is delivered to site in a timely and safe way. And lastly, I should also mention our real-time dashboards. Odyssey is a tech platform where we use technology to scale, but also to enable better visibility across these transactions so that you can track live all these procurement transactions from manufacturing through customs and all the way to site delivery. So this combination means less time chasing suppliers, fewer surprises, and more predictable delivery schedules. So now let's speak about the terms and how this credit facility works. So procurement efficiency is important, but it doesn't fully solve the working capital problem. That's where supply chain credit comes in. Here's how it works step by step. You place an equipment order and lock in the cost of this equipment by paying us a deposit. It's generally 15%. Once we receive that deposit, we'll pay the supplier in full on your behalf. Once the equipment is ready to be shipped, we will ship the goods, clear them in country, deliver them to site, enable you to proceed with the build of your project, and we're getting paid only once the RBF disburse for you to pay us back. The key here is really alignment. Your repayment matches the RBF inflows, but before. That removes the liquidity squeeze that so many of you are already experiencing today. Diving deeper into these terms, we're looking at ticket sizes that can go up to $5 million. We like to start anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 per transaction, all the way up to $5 million. That's obviously the size of this credit facility is often confirmed as part of our due diligence process, which I'll walk you through later in this webinar. The credit period, can go up to 12 months or COD. The way we charge for our credit is generally a one-time processing fee and an ongoing fee per month. These fees are roughly anywhere from 1.25 to 1.5%. Excuse me. Our security is first, we retain title over the goods until we fully paid for, and an escrow of the grant proceed from the program. In other words, we need to be repaid independently of the developers. There are a number of mechanisms we can implement, and I'm sure we'll have questions on these mechanism during the Q&A phase of this webinar. But they're too specific to give you a straight answer now. And lastly, the repayment can be in line with milestone payment from the program or as a bullet payment if you're getting paid by the program as one single bullet payment. The real innovation of our credit facility and our procurement platform is its revolver structure. So it's recyclability. With supply chain credit, once you repay your project, your credit line refreshes automatically. That means that you can immediately move on to the next project instead of waiting months for capital to free up. These recycling mechanisms is what allows developers like yourself to scale your pipeline quickly under any RBF program. So in fact, even if you're a CNI developers, the principle remains. So you are no longer stuck waiting for that capital. You're continuously building and recycling this capital on an ongoing basis. So I've shared quite a lot already, so I'd like us to take a step back and just reiterate what sets supply chain credit apart. First, fast approval process. As soon as we receive the document from you to conduct due diligence, we will need roughly 7 to 10 days until we can disburse and pay the supplier, which is extremely fast. We've got a fairly large limit. We'll be able to support you up to $5 million per developers. A flexible repayment schedule, which align with the project's inflow or the grant disbursement in the case of RBF programs. We can go up to 12 months until your longer-term financings become available. And a critical point is that it is additive to your existing borrowings. So we come and complement some of your debt facilities that you have available that might be exhausted on a regular basis. So please do not think of Odyssey as an alternative to bank, but rather as a complementary solution to traditional lenders. And this combination of all these benefits is speed, size, and flexibility, which makes our offering unique. And I should also say that it's really been designed to match the transactional aspect of our industry, so that it's available to you virtually on demand, and can be deployed, as I mentioned, within 10 days of you applying for these facilities. Let's talk about next steps. So how do you, as a developer, engage with this facility? Our process is very straightforward. The very first step is that you need to be awarded with a grant. So there has to be a grant on the other hand, there has to be a buyer on the other hand. In the case of a typical RBF program, this buyer is the program itself. So will be taken out, our credit facility will be taken out by the RBF proceeds. Number two, you'll share your BOQ with us. You complete your engineering pack, you have your BOQ ready, you'll share that with our team. As we receive the BOQ, we'll benchmark it against our OEM network. Very often, we'll give you a number of alternatives. If you have a lot of our customers are not set on one OEM, in which instance we can provide you with multiple quotes, as I mentioned earlier, and by doing so, benchmarking the market, comparing technical scopes, but also pricing. Number three is for us to set up an escrow mechanism. This escrow mechanism is enabling us to get paid back from the grant proceed independently of you. Number four, once we've agreed on the BOQ, once we've established an escrow mechanism, we will, you will sign a quotation and we'll disperse. You will sign a quotation, sorry, you'll pay us the deposit, and we'll disperse directly to the suppliers. Keep the goods in country, enable you to take physical possession of the goods, proceed with your plan, whether it's a sell rollout plan on the SHS or mini grid constructions. We give you the time to proceed with the build, and only once the RBF component kicks in, we expect to get paid. So this process has been tested and already vetted in multiple programs, and it is designed again for efficiency and low risk. Now, Lucille, I'll just ask you to send a link in the chat. If some of you on this call today are taking part in some of the program we've discussed, you have an immediate transaction at stake and you require support, please just complete the link that we'll be sharing with you on the chat, and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, so now let's speak about becoming a credit partner and what needs to happen next. We won't be able to support you or to procure for you until these two steps are completed. The first step is the pre-qualification. So these steps enables us to approve a credit limit. And what we would need from you is effectively your company's financials, some details about your pipeline, even if it's anonymized, history on equity raising, profile of the shareholders, debt partners, and of course, ENS compliance checks. So anyone who would have engaged traditional lenders in the past would be familiar with the process. If anything, we are quite light but thorough, and the objective is to ensure we set realistic credit limits for each one of you in line with your working capital appetite and the size of this pipeline. Number two is the transaction level due diligence. Step number one is a one-off step. Once you are a credit partner, you are on our system, you have a profile on our platform, and then it's just a matter of sharing transaction level information that enables us to underwrite this transaction and disburse. So for step number two, once you have signed the grant agreement, as I mentioned to you, you'll share with us your BOQ. We'll look at your, of course, diligence to sign grant agreements, evidence of fund availability to complete the project. Very often, the capital we would deploy would cover anywhere from 60 to 40% of your project cost, because you have soft cost in the total project capex that we are unable to capture. Remember that this facility is dedicated to procurement. And of course, as part of stage two, we need to ensure that this repayment mechanism is implemented. That generally takes anywhere from 7 days to 2 weeks, depending on how quick you can be at providing us with this document. And number two, establishing this escrow mechanism in country. That's pretty much it for today. I am going to pause here and take any question that attendees would have.
Thank you very much, Max. Thank you for yet another great and very clear presentation on a very interesting facility, quite unique also in our field. Maybe you can just stop sharing your screen so that we can see in full screen mode. There we go. During the Q&A. So yes, we've got a few questions coming in already. I have a first question from Tadasmi. Tadasmi is asking, what are the options in case we have a vendor offering a pricing much below the rates offered by Odyssey? Can you still exercise the financing from Odyssey? So the assumption is that
Yes.
you, thanks to the size, you are supposed to get the best prices ever. But what if one company reaching out to you actually finds a better deal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the reality is that these instances happen. There will be, we are not in partnership with every single OEM globally. So it is likely if you've been working with an OEM with whom we don't have an existing relationship, that your pricing will be more appealing than ours. In which case, we're comfortable plugging ourselves in between your OEM and yourself, and we'll be able to extend credit on the basis that the pricing offered to us is matching what the OEM would have offered to you directly.
I think that's very clear. Thank you. Question from me, if you allow me, before we take some other questions. Um, Generally, the companies that you are assisting are
Mhm.
not receiving the financing that they need because the traditional financiers are perceiving too much risk, or perceiving that they are too startup or not credit worthy enough. So how can Odyssey take that risk? What is your secret?
Another really good question. I think many financiers look backwards when they run the due diligence on companies. They'll look left, they look at your balance sheet last year, they look at your latest audited financials. They don't take a view really on what's coming on the pipeline. We look right. We also, so that's the first point. We take a view on incoming cash from your pipeline, and we'll ring fence the project cash flows that will be extended credit for. Number two, in the traditional lending world, um, most financiers are looking for collateral to lend against. Um, and as an energy company, if you are a service company, the reality is that you have a fairly weak balance sheet, meaning that you don't have many assets for financiers to take comfort against. That's something we look into. Obviously, we want to ensure that your company is healthy financially. But more importantly, we looked at your execution capability and your ability to secure the grant proceed. So the main risk for us really sits in your ability to execute these projects to get paid by the program. And that's really where the bulk of our due diligence focus on.
Thank you for this excellent transition to my next question. Actually, it's a question from Tanya, and a similar question from Rashid. Um, what are there any specific minimum requirements that you are requesting from anybody that you could support? Is there like a certain number of years of experience? You know, a lot of companies participating in RBF programs are relatively young. They're relatively small. Um,
Mhm,
and generally, this can be a blocking element. What are
mhm,
your minimum requirements to accept to onboard somebody?
mhm. It's another really good question. Generally, we would look at a company that has been in business for at least 2 to 3 years. Sometimes it's not the case, but the founders would have cumulatively extensive experience across different ventures. So it's not so much about how long you've been in business. I mean, if you've been in business for 6 months, then you won't have audited financials. So it becomes very difficult for us to do our due diligence at a company level. So it's unlikely we'll be able to support you. But if your business is a year old or 2 years old, uh, but has been successful and is ramping up over the first 2 years. And again, we can find comforts in the profile of the directors and the respective background in the sector. Then it's something we will assess. So again, we're looking for companies and professionals with a track record, successful track record of deployment of mini grids or SHS programs or SHS sales rollout, excuse me. Um, but we don't have per se a set benchmark. It's often a mix of uh, different points that we need to review and underwrite in order to make a decision.
And a follow-up question on this same topic from Tadasmi.
Mhm.
Is there any geographical limitation? Do you provide this kind of financing support for projects anywhere in any country in Africa? And do you provide this to companies that are exclusively registered in Africa, or could you be providing this financing to a company established outside of Africa but having a project in Africa?
Yeah. So to the first question, we've got a comprehensive list of all the country where we are mandated to invest. It's again on the link shared in the chat box. I believe it should be available if you don't mind confirming for me, John. And Lucille is, by the way, our head of marketing from Odyssey, who's also on this call. I'm just asking her to repost that link. So you'll have a comprehensive list of all the country we are active in when it comes to Africa on that page. That was question number one. So most Pan-African countries. Question number two, we'll be able to take a view on companies that might be registered outside Africa. In fact, we work with many developers or IPPs who are registered in Europe, but have an investment mandate that is focused on Africa. So that's not a problem for us. It won't stop us from doing business together.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that answers the question, that answers the questions of Peter and Michael as well. Michael has another interesting question. How, I mean, we know that we are in some cases, some sub-Saharan African countries are exposed to pretty intense forex fluctuations. How is this being handled when working with you? Is it standard and everybody just takes the risk, or is there something a bit special with the kinds of solutions that you are proposing that also make the lives of developers on the ground a bit easier?
Yeah. So another really good question. I should say that we do not take forex risks. We will in some instances where I'll take the example of Nigeria, where we are able to get paid in Naira, but generally the transaction is USD denominated. So it becomes a challenge where some of these grants are being disbursed in local currencies, in which case, again, it's subject to due diligence and underwriting and to really assess the risk associated with forex fluctuations. So the short answer is we are not mandated to take forex risk in most cases, despite a few exceptions, but it's very, very rare.
Another question from Michael. Do you fund projects or do you fund companies? Or do you fund companies with specific projects? Well, what exactly should people get in touch with you about?
I want to ensure I fully understand the question. So we don't fund companies in the meaning that we're not lenders. We won't provide you with cash to your business for you to carry on your activity. We'll lend. Our customers are companies, but we are procuring for identified projects. So we need to take a view on who's our customers. That customer would have to be a company. The customer cannot be a project. It cannot be an SPV. There has to be a registered entity with financial history. So we lend for projects. We don't lend. We actually procure for projects, and for companies that are building these projects.
And actually, I have a very interesting follow-up question on this topic, on the same topic from Prosper. Very often, companies win a tender as a joint venture, as a consortium of companies. So technically, the consortium does not have any track records. The different companies do, and together they win a project. How do you approach this situation?
Another really, really good question. And it's not a straightforward answer. Again, generally, we'll take a view on the members of this consortium. We need to understand, because we need to know that in the event of a default, who are we dealing with? Whose company? So we would take a view on all the members and look at the strongest member from a due diligence standpoint to be transacting with. So we can't lend to a consortium, or we can't procure for a consortium but we'll look at the member of this consortium and deal with one of the members directly.
Very
It's often
well.
the subject of a conversation with all the members to understand what's the best way forward.
Yeah, 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 yeah. In your presentation, at some point, you explained that you can finance up to 5 million. But
Mhm.
Henry is asking, is there like a minimum amount that people can reach out to for?
Well, I think yes. So we generally do not engage in transactions below $200,000. Uh, the reason being is that first of all, it takes a lot of time and effort to underwrite these transactions. So it has to be worth your while as a company, and but also our while as a business. But number two, you also want to be able to warrant international procurement, because the procurement savings are achieved when we procure directly internationally. That's where the real saving are being generated. And you will need to procure um, a sufficient amount of equipment to justify the freight charges and insurance charges that come with procurement.
Just looking at the questions, suddenly we've got a lot of questions coming in, so I'm trying to select through them to continue the conversation. Yes, another interesting question here. A lot of very good questions today. So you've
Mm.
mentioned a few RBF programs.
Mhm.
The first question from the listener is, um, are only these RBF programs that you have mentioned qualified? Or if somebody else knows about another RBF program that you may not know of, do they qualify? And then my
Mm.
add-on question, um, today we're talking about RBFs because this is the topic of the day, but I believe there is also other options for supply chain financing that Odyssey provides. And maybe this is a great opportunity to also briefly mention what are the other options.
Right. So to the first question, no, we are not prescriptive to the programs shared with you today. The example I've shared with you today are programs that we are running currently on our platform and that are live. As we all know on this call, there are many more programs being run in Africa, and we'll happily look into these programs, take a view on the financial rhythm of the program, and potentially support you for your procurement. So we're not, as I said, that we're not prescriptive on, and the list of programs shared today is not exhaustive. Um, the second question was yes. So John, you're right. Today we are speaking specifically about RBF and how we work within the RBF ecosystem, but we work with CNI company, measuring companies, even e-mobility in some other instances. So what we do for RBF and the pain point we're solving for RBF and I would say successful grantees under these programs is real on the other other subsector, I should say, of the GRE ecosystem. There's always a need, and often um, solar companies are forced to front capital until they get paid by the customer or the project sponsor. Customer being a program, a bank, a cash buyer, or if you're an EPC, you might be building for IPPs. So again, we can support you across the entirety of these scenarios.
And how do you actually do this? In the first slides of your presentation, if I remember correctly, you
Mm.
mentioned that you're working with a network of around 3,000 EPCs. Um,
Mhm.
Everybody has a different need. How do you manage to deal and to maintain a relationship with so many different companies at the same time? Isn't it like a bit industrial while everybody needs like a personal feel?
Yeah. So they may have different needs, but they share the same pain points. So the product is the same for everyone. It's just the structuring of this transaction may differ slightly. Secondly, not every company on the list of 3,000 companies or partners we have globally are trading simultaneously. There is a seasonality in the business of each one of our partners. So thankfully, not uh, not everyone is procuring and engaging us simultaneously. Otherwise, we most likely would face some capacity constraints. Um, yeah.
Thank you very much. You know me. I like to ask some devil's advocate questions as well from time to time.
Mhm,
How is your relationship with distributors and OEMs? Because
mhm.
you are to some extent disturbing the market a little bit. You are creating a little bit of a bottleneck. People come to you, you manage to aggregate demand, big volumes, bypassing some historical players, having more negotiating power with other players. How is your relationship with your relationship with them? And how can everybody benefit from the new service that you are bringing?
Well, remember that we are a procurement platform. We're not procuring only on behalf of EPCs. The two examples you mentioned, OEMs and distributors, are also customers of ours. They're also making use of our procurement platform. For an OEM, whether it is to procure raw material that will be used within the manufacturing process, in which case we are supporting them in the same way we'd be supporting an EPC in procuring the finished product from this OEM. And for distributors, we often either would help them procure or help them sell by extending credit line to the customers. So we can be a partner with a distributor, or we can also be our customers by fitting in the shoes of their customers, but extending credit line for that customer again to ease the working capital constraint experienced by these customers. So I don't think we are disrupting their business. If anything, we are supporting it, and we work in a collaborative manner with distributor and OEMs.
Looking at more questions from the audience, just taking on a few more. We've got a gentleman from Nigeria who apparently has already worked with Odyssey, Emeka, um, and is unclear about, okay, we had like a first agreement, we worked together. Um, do we need for a new project to make a new agreement, or does this fall under the revolving credit line? How, I mean, you mentioned something about revolving credit at some point. Can you just
Mhm,
explain, like in the case of a successful collaboration with an installer,
mhm.
how is the relationship? How does it go?
Okay. Maybe just to answer specifically to these Nigerian developers, I didn't quite get the name and I can't see the questions. But first, I think let's engage directly with your account executive. You would have somebody in Nigeria with whom you've dealt in the past who'll be able to support you and answer very specific question you may have. Um, Now, when it comes to revolving credit, I think by the time we receive approval from our investment committee and that we are able um, to mobilize this capital is being dedicated to these partners. So, assuming a company received a $2 million credit envelope, they'll be using that credit envelope, but then we are wanting this credit envelope to be recycled. If we do a first transactions, are collecting payment for the first transactions, but the capital is not recycled, let's say in a timely manner, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, we can't indefinitely reserve that capital to this partner. It would have to be redeployed to other more immediate projects. But the
Very
intent
well.
is for it to be recycled. So we work with our customers again to identify these recycling opportunities.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, Yes, this question from Pam. Does Odyssey only support mini-grid grant-funded project, or can it be extended, for example, to CNI?
Yeah, we do finance in our projects all the time. Um, yeah, so yes.
Today, like we said a few minutes ago, today we spoke specifically about RBF programs and how Odyssey can support in that specific situation because RBF are growing in popularity. But there's many different things, like I mentioned, that Odyssey can do and support. Still in the same spirit of supply chain financing. So I'm not a sales rep of Odyssey, but Pam, I invite you to get in touch with Max and with Lucille so that they can have a private discussion with you about your specific needs. And same thing before we close. Same comment for Henry, Emeka, Peter. Thank you very much for your questions, but those are really, really specific to your situation. You have shared them in the Q&A section. They will be shared with Max and his colleagues, and they will be able to handle those and get back to you with very specific answers
Yeah.
to you as well.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thanks, John.
and
Before
then,
we close it,
yeah, go
sorry,
on.
is there more questions that we need to cover?
There was one more, but I cannot find it back right now. So please help me buy some time so that I can
Yeah.
find it back.
Sure. So now I was going to remind all the attendees today. Obviously, there are over hundreds of you online and joining us here for this webinar. So we can't attend to all and every single question. So I really invite you to again click on the link which has been shared with you, because each of these inquiry will be reviewed individually. So if you have questions that are specific to your business, your situation, and immediate opportunities, just please make sure to share them via the link we've shared with you.
Yes, okay. I have the last question, and it's
Sure.
important because Michael is asking, is the financing that you provide a grant or is it financing? And maybe it's good just to clarify this so that everybody is on the same line.
So it's not a grant. The capital deploying, by the way, so we will be procuring. So we're not lending, we are procuring equipment for you, and we just happen to be um, selling this equipment back to you at under credit. But this capital remains to be paid back. So we're not a grant, we are a procurement platform with embedded credit dedicated to ease your working capital constraints, but you would have to pay us back.
And in this specific case, it is based on the fact that a company would be the receiver of a grant from one of the programs that are available from the company.
In this case, we look at the grant payout as our takeout counterpart.
Max, this has been awesome. Thank you very much for another very clear and interesting presentation. We know that there's a lot of projects happening. We know that there are a lot of opportunities, but very often financing of these projects is the bottleneck, even though, like you mentioned, there's
Mhm.
no shortage of funding available, but it's always a question of how do I get access? How do I get
Timing.
compliance?
Mhm.
How do I get people to trust me with my project? And what Odyssey is offering is one of the solutions available out there. So thank you very much for sharing a little bit more about
Mhm.
this program that you are making available. I'm going to let you go, Max, because I know you have a very, very busy schedule at the end of this quarter. But I'm going to leave this session open for one more minute in case there's some very last minute questions that people want to ask. They can still drop them in the Q&A section. And then after that time, I will say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you to all of you joining us today. Bye.
Thank you. And then meanwhile, while I still have a few of you online, let me take this opportunity to inform you about our annual investment forum, REFA, which this year will take place in Accra, in Ghana, at the beginning of December, on the 3rd and the 4th of December. So Accra, REFA, Renewable Energy Forum Africa. It really is an investment forum. So the goal there is for a lot of developers to meet with a lot of financing partners and vice versa. There's really a lot going on right now, a lot of people to meet, either looking for funding or looking for good projects. We happen to go to Accra and West Africa this year. But the conversations that are happening there, the meetings that are happening there are really about projects and financing projects all across Africa. So I hope many of you will be able to join us there. And of course, as every year, it will also be the occasion to indulge in the annual awards ceremony, celebrating the best solar companies and individuals of the past year. during the AFSIA Awards ceremony on the evening of the 3rd of December. All info, of course, can be found on our website. So I think this is it for today. I'm just taking a quick look at the questions. I see that it's not moving anymore, so I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day. And I thank you once again for joining us. There will be many more events coming up online and also live with our Chill and Connect series that is roaming around the continent and coming to visit you in your cities. So please also take a look at the website so that you get to learn about our schedule. Thank you very much and goodbye.